Faith and love starts with faith in you. Know yourself to grow yourself. And discover the DNA of love with Dr. Williams every Wednesday at 4 p.m.
Give love.
Fidelity in itself is idea-wise, it's a commitment to being with the person you've chosen to be with and then maintaining that over time, as simply as we can put it, which sounds true. That sounds easy. Like, it's a novel thing. Like, I'm going to stay with this person forever and I'm going to actually commit to this person forever. In theory, it's what marriage is supposed to be, at least, mostly traditionally speaking. So fidelity in itself is not a complicated idea, but neither is like peace. Neither is like conflict resolution.
Right.
They're easy topics, but they're super duper hard to like maintain over time. So hopefully today is a bit of a grounding of what that idea is, and then a extension of like, how do I maintain it with practice versus expecting it to happen by magic? Because magic looks cool when you're pulling a rabbit out the hat, but pulling love and like fidelity out the hat takes time, and or you can pay for your lawyer now.
So I know this first question, right, is just that commitment to being faithful. Because, like you said, it sounds easy. It should be easy. However, it is a commitment. It is, okay, this is the one person I gotta be with forever. So how, as a couple or as an individual in a couple, understanding that, and why does that matter?
So recognizing what you have to lose. Like, so much of infidelity is oftentimes a hindsight mistake. In hindsight, I see I did something wrong. In the moment, it was fun. In the moment, it felt needed, maybe, depending on the person. But recognizing what's at stake for the relationship altogether. So, like, asking yourself truly, like, why even stay faithful? Why am I even with this person? Like, is there any particular reason why I'm actually feeling like I need to be in this relationship? And if the answer is yes, then throw yourself a party. Like, step one is complete. Now, what we have to do or should do in these moments is like uncover, like, am I doing it for my kids? Do I like even seeing this person happy? If I want to stay with them long term, what does that mean to me? Have I ever defined these things? And if I haven't, then I got some work to do.
All great questions. And how it's because you know it, because you're the doctor of love, right? How, as a person, how can we get to that point of asking ourselves that, do you think?
Ask your partner.
Yeah?
Ask them first. See what they say.
Like what they want or what
does fidelity look like to them? Because in many respects, you're going to have this conversation anyway. And if you truly look in from an introspective standpoint and you don't really know, like, what the answer might be for yourself, be curious to hear what they might say. They might say something that makes you, like, cry. They may say something that makes you, like, crack up and laugh. Like, it depends on the person. I remember I was like, when I was 20, I thought I was going to marry this person I was with. And, I was going to say her name. Yeah, I'll say her name, Miss McKenzie. She was hoping to be Miss Williams at some point, and I thought she was going to be. And I remember I asked her, like, I asked her the way, at least from my perspective, a 20-year-old asked. I was like, well, where's this going? And which is ironically coming from me at the time, an athlete in college. I'm trying to figure out, like, romantically, where's this going? And I remember, like, she was just like, she told me in so many words, I'm just having fun, which was like, for me, it should have been a red flag, but I was like, oh, cool. I'm having fun too. This is fun. And the whole, depth of the conversation related to like commitment, fidelity, etc., like, we didn't address. We just moved on. And that was a lot of data she gave me that I chose to ignore because it was fun. And it was fun until infidelity creeped in honestly on both sides. Both of us got away with it too.
Interesting.
We did. The only reason I know we got away with it is because, to be honest, I never told her that I cheated, but I did at the time. And she cheated on me because I found out because she came clean about it like a year later because it was weighing heavily on her conscience. Which makes me even in this moment realize that like it didn't weigh heavily on my conscience. Maybe it should have. But it was one of those eye-opening moments that like fidelity in itself is like, it's a desire to do something positive, and they say if you take care of something good, that something good takes care of you. So find out what your good is.
I feel like that's also a sign too that wasn't the Mrs. Williams, because you know, if it wasn't eating on you, that what's that risk? What's the gain? You're like, what is that risk kind of thing? It didn't weigh that heavy on you.
I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I had potentially at the time she was. I guess we have time. I guess I'll tell you the story. She was into voodoo. Interesting hobby. Very much so. I never experienced anything like that before, but when we were, I think it was a summer while we were in school, and I remember while we were making her bed one day, just her little twin bed in her dorm room, and I flipped the blanket up, and I looked under the bed, and there was like 6 or 7, like emptied out Gatorade bottles, like just with the labels ripped off. So I'm like, well, maybe she has a urination issue. Like maybe in the middle of the night, like who knows? I'm not here to judge.
Right.
But I looked closely, and there was like clear liquid, but like a cloudy clear liquid, almost like kind of like dumping like a lot of sugar in water, but like a lot. And it was in like all 6 like Gatorade bottles. We were asking her about it, and she said, I quote, "Don't worry about it. It's not for you." And she like threw the blanket on top of it, and like we kept making the bed, and I was like, all right, it's odd.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, well, whatever. And then some point that summer, she explained to me that her mom had, I don't want to say what her background was, but her mom had practiced voodoo when they were kids, and she continued it now. And around that same time, like I had like extreme night terrors almost every night. And even now, in hindsight, I think back on that relationship, and I was like, oh boy, did I ignore the signs? Did I like not commit to this idea of understanding what I wanted from the relationship and what she did? And to this day, to be honest with you, I really do think she put a hex on me.
You think so?
I think so. I really do. And I never found out what was in those Gatorade bottles.
Yeah, that's really, I don't know, I feel like the mystery of unknown might be better than the actual answer. But you mentioned at the beginning, about asking your partner, how do they see fidelity? And talking about that, who is fidelity for? Obviously, it's the couple, but are you asking for you? Are you asking for your partner? Like, what does that mean?
That's a strong question when you consider family. So many times we stay in relationships because of what family may think, having met these people before. So like, and you've probably seen it before with people who are dating, and they're like, who are maybe considering breaking up. But one of the considerations truly is like, well, what will mom and dad think? Like, well, my brother and sister already met him. Or, you know, grandma already met her. Do I really want to introduce another person to the family and do this whole rigmarole again? Like, that's another aspect of like, okay, are we staying faithful for me, you, mom and dad, kids, military? Really? Like, is the only religion, it's a big one. If the only thing keeping you faithful is an outside contributor, then you should really question the strength of the relationship. Because what should be keeping us faithful is a desire to be faithful for that person. Is it always easy? No. Like, really, really not. But recognizing that, like, it's a job. It's a true job. But it doesn't have to be a job you hate. It could be a labor of love if you actually enjoy it with the person you're supposed to be working with. But so many of us have the wrong person or had the wrong person and can recognize, like, I'm working really, really hard for somebody who I don't really, really love, but it's just nice to not go to sleep alone. Yeah,
that, like, routine and just someone to be with. And I feel like it can be difficult to recognize. But you also mentioned, that it's hard having that fidelity. And so we're going to talk about fidelity as a skill and kind of those things that you can practice. But talking about fidelity, because like we said in the last break, it's a commitment to us. I mean, you always hear oh, we're we people now. Like, you make fun of your friends, we're we people. But when you're in a commitment, yeah, that's going to happen. You're committing to two people, not just yourself. And so that can be difficult. And I know you like to talk to the young airmen, and you even just told a story about how, I was 21, I was 20, like, I handled it maybe like a 21-year-old would. It is a skill working on that fidelity and that commitment. So what are some of the advice and things that people should look for when it comes to working on that fidelity?
don't be fooled by the myth that it couldn't be you too. This idea of like, I remember I heard this from a kid when I was growing up, is like, well, I'm never going to cheat. It's like, well, that's a guy you should watch. Because the idea that you can never fall and be sort of, I guess I could say a victim to like this mindset of like, well, I would never cheat, so I don't have to do any work to make sure it doesn't happen, is like nuts. And it doesn't work. Like, it's like saying a person who like, well, I'll never be in a car accident, so I drive with my eyes closed. It's like, okay, good luck. You can do it, but don't mean it's to be done.
Yeah. Like,
by all means, recognizing at the very outset that like, I can slip up too. I can make a mistake just like anyone else. And that's not even including with like alcohol and substances involved. But if you throw those in the mix, now you have a bigger problem on your hands, because inhibition is now removed, and the anxiety that you would have had that would have kept you safe is no longer there. So recognizing, first of all, like, I'm not special in this realm, in this category. And if I do slip up, it's likely potentially because of not laying the groundwork ahead of time. So first, that would be step one. Step two, just know yourself. For example, there's a decent population of human beings who enjoy, let's just call them exotic dance locations.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you're into, man, like, okay, cool. If that's what if that seems like a fun Friday night, a fun Saturday night, do you. But recognize, like, you're putting yourself in a geographical location where fidelity becomes really, really difficult. It becomes really taxing. And you're giving yourself work to do to stay faithful. So in many ways, I would argue that mastering location and avoiding booby traps, no pun intended, is the best way to go when it comes to these kind of like approaches for keeping faithful within your relationship. If you put yourself around, like, think about it like I was going to say dieting, but that's kind of like played out these days. I'm thinking like I play guitar. Like, I'm not the best, but I'm not terrible either. I can play me a little bit the Beatles, some U2. It's fun. If I don't put my guitar by the couch, I can go months without picking it up. The location of the guitar matters. And my brain is very complex, but it's incredibly predictable and at times like easily manipulated. And if I give myself an easy reach to something that's positive, like I'll reach for it literally in the context of my guitar. The same thing happens with things that are not so great, but are easily obtained. So in a exotic dance location, if you're putting yourself next to the sort of instruments at play, you're going to find yourself playing music that sounds a lot different than what you play with your wife. So, if you can catch my drift. Right. So in many ways, understanding yourself, like, from a, like, location standpoint, but also context. So I never put myself in a room with somebody, like, where I would have to be within their bubble, closely to them. Okay. So, like, elevators are an exception. Obviously, if you're in an elevator, you have to stand to some degree close to someone, but you still give them their space. You will never catch me in a position where I have to explain myself when it comes to, like, where my body physically is located. Like, if I'm on a dance floor, then I must be breakdancing alone, because I'm not going to be dancing with people who are potentially putting me in situations where I have to explain myself. In these contexts, like, dancing and partying is one of the biggest pitfalls for avoiding booby traps, where it puts you in a position where there are cheating landmines everywhere. Right. And you're bound to step on one if you keep going. Which is why dating and partying, they don't mix. It's fun. It's fun. It can be. Like, Tommy Lee looks like he's having a good time. Like, rock stars are, I mean, think about Maroon 5. What's his name? Adam Levine. He just cheated on his lady. And poorly, by the way. I read his text. They're bad. He has no game. No. Zero. Relying on the pretty face, like, I think he used a word like akin to holy moly in describing how pretty he thought she was. And it's like, bro, you're worth a lot of money. You're in a strong, at least believed to be or allegedly strong relationship, and you fell victim to things like Instagram. Right. And Instagram is like going to a gentleman's club, but it's just in your pocket. And it's like close to the area in which the problems begin for a lot of us, specifically speaking about men. I know that's one, especially
in modern society with all the social media and stuff,
Sure.
I know a lot of friends that have that argument, you know, of specifically social media, of like, well, why are you following these people? Like, is that what you want to see on your page? Like, and then it gets into this whole argument of like, well, no, but they're this. And so how would you, in that specific instance, kind of advise for people?
Ask yourself why you're doing the things you're doing. If you're truly just a connoisseur of beautified images and human beings existing, like, please follow whoever you want. But ask yourself, going back to that commitment for us, right? If I know that, like, following certain types of individuals or certain types of people is having a detrimental impact on the sanctity of my relationship, I'm not saying that I'm just going to immediately throw away the part of me that feels most attached to following those people, but I am going to ask questions. Be curious. If you're not curious, become curious. Like, if I'm actually committed to this person, like, what am I gaining out of finding other people to ogle at online? And if it's a self-esteem issue, if it's a general, like, I just like looking at hot things, then ask yourself, well, if you are in a relationship, why isn't the quote-unquote hot thing not the thing that you've hitched your wagon to?
Right.
If you can't find that attraction in the person you're with, then potentially there's something going on. Potentially. But poisonous communication is, like, incredibly toxic, no pun intended.
Right.
Like, poisonous communication is not just like looking or following people on Instagram, but or texting other people like benign things because we're just happen to be bros, and I know she's really pretty, but like, she's my buddy. Like, cool, pal. Like, that's fine. But again, communication can be poisonous. It starts out tasting good and fulfilling, but if you let it slip, and it does slip, like changing in slippage in sports, they call it game slippage. When momentum is taken over, like adrenaline's in play, the moment is moving quickly, slippage takes place. For trying to stay faithful, if you're not watching that slippage, texting can go on into the evening, and texting into the evening becomes silencing your phone so certain ringers don't go off. It becomes texting people when certain people are out of the room, and then that grows and grows and grows. Before you know it, you're sitting at someone's house that's not your spouse, and you're like, how'd I get here, man? Am I going to go home? Am I going to actually hug the person that I care about in this moment, or am I going to continue the slippage? It's hard.
It is hard. As I feel like that's also that internal questioning yourself of like you said, what am I gaining from this? Or what am I not, also asking yourself, what am I not gaining from my relationship as well? Like, why am I seeking this other person out?
The snowball of white lies is a phrase that I coined, but so lies are already problematic in the context of communication and relationships. And people do make the argument constantly that, like, well, some lies have to be told. To that, I say, which ones? Like, put your money where your mouth is.
Tell me.
Certain lies have to be told. Where do you start?
Has anyone given you an answer?
Yeah, I've gotten a few. They're not satisfactory. People say things as like, well, you lie to protect people. Well, what are you protecting them from? Well, I don't tell, my spouse that X outfit looks horrendous, or in my opinion, or I don't tell my spouse, that, like, oh, this person texted me because I know they will get upset, even though the texting was about, like, work. Or well, this person followed me on Instagram, and I know my spouse would hate that, but maybe I shouldn't tell her because there's nothing going on there. Cool. Maybe that's cool in the moment, but those white lies will snowball eventually. And then where do you draw the line? When am I going to start being honest if lying became so easy? And lying is really easy. When you think about it, people lie all the time. They lie about silly things too. And it's really, if you do it enough, you become practiced.
Because I feel like that's the thing, as you were saying, I was protecting them, where when you actually look at it at the outside point of view, it's like you're protecting yourself from their potential reaction type of thing.
And it's selfish too, because you're not really protecting yourself themselves from their potential reaction. I'm just protecting myself from having to deal with it.
That's what,
100%. So, and a lot of that is delusional dating plus a bit of delusional diligence. And by that, so think of not to really brag on the guys too much, but think about I wouldn't even say the dad, just the person who is dating someone or married to someone and will but really, really commit to being a great parent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a great father. Like, I'm always there for my kids. It's like, well, how are you as a husband? Well, I mean, because I'm so good as a dad and I'm always there for my kids, it means I'm a great husband. And not true, but you become deluded by this idea that, like, well, because I'm good at X, then Y comes with the same territory. And it's delusional.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you are really, really strong at, like, giving birthday gifts doesn't mean that you are just going to be faithful by definition. You have to practice the skill. And again, going back to the gentleman's club thing, not to overly harp on it, but, like, I wonder, like, to what degree is that even a function of something else related to maybe not being ready to be in a relationship altogether? Like, if you're in a situation where you're constantly needing the stimulation or the sort of connection of other people from a physical aesthetic standpoint, then why are you in the relationship to begin with? What are you getting out of it? Is this just an emotional teddy bear you're holding on to while you also enjoy, I guess that thong song is an actual song, so I can say it on the air. But, like, in these moments, it's like, why? And I don't think enough people ask that question.
I feel like that takes, just that emotional maturity, but also self-maturity, because there are times where it's like, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I don't want to realize it yet, which is difficult. It can be very difficult.
And people don't grow up, they just get old. It's really easy to just become a person who's like, well, I'm 30. Now I'm a man. It's like, no.
No, you still act like you're 19. Like,
yeah, did you get really good at playing the violin just by hitting 40? Like, no, you had to practice and become really good at playing the kind of music you want to play. And if you don't like the music in your life, then sometimes a change in station may be in need. Again, a radio pun while on the radio. If my wife is listening, that's one for you.
So you're talking about, you mentioned the practicing of the fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
How does that look?
So having faith and being faithful, for one. Like, the idea of, like, the anxiety related to, well, how long is forever? Like, that's when you think about it, like, it's really, really, like deafening, the sound of, like, forever. Like, I have to be with someone for the next 30 to 40 to maybe 50 years. Like, is being faithful worth it to me? Do I have true faith in it the way I would have faith in, like, religion even? Do I actually commit myself to this this idea of, like, well, taking care of something good is actually is going to create something that takes good care of me. If I don't believe that from the beginning, then I'm going to fail. If I'm kind of, like, on the fence or ambivalent about, like, whether I should even be faithful, or if I'm feeling temptation and I don't do anything about it. When I say do anything about it, I'm not encouraging people to go cheat, by the way.
Right.
If you feel temptation and you respond to it by thought suppression or trying to just not consider it, then possibly you find yourself in an area of slippage. So this is one that's, like, truly, truly important, is internal honesty. Like, if you're a person who's finds yourself, like, craving, like, physical gratification from other people, give yourself grace. You're not a bad person. Like, attraction is normal. You're allowed to be attracted to other people. It does happen, and it's fine. Attraction doesn't kill marriages. Cheating does.
Right.
So you're allowed to...
Acting on the attraction.
Bingo. So if you're in that situation, give yourself grace of being attracted to someone else. Then develop a plan. This is one hug away rule is actually, like, something that I've said before in treatment. Is the idea of, if you feel like you're possibly about to do something harmful to your relationship or to your family, try to do something that puts your significant other one hug away. Like, if they are at a point where you're, like, in Osan, or they're in France, or you're in Kentucky and they're stationed somewhere else, that might be really difficult. So build in ways where you find access to them when you're in your most weak moments. Because every person on this planet will have weak moments when they're dating or married. What happen? Like, especially when you're arguing, when you're fighting, like, it's really easy to think, well, I'm still cute. And I'm young enough to go out and get somebody. Like, I can definitely go do my thing if I wanted to. But is that what you really want? Or do you want to be heard in your own relationship and it's not there? So internal honesty is really, really helpful, but practice valuing your love, like, as an entity. do you value the fact that we have a connection? Like, are you in love with the idea of being in love, or are you in love with your partner? Like, are you excited by the idea of having someone, or are you excited by the idea of having him or her? That's more valuable than this infatuation with just conceptual love. Like, I've heard people say that. I've seen it on TikTok. Like, I love being in love.
Yeah.
Do you? Add a name tag to that.
Person. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I've said that a few times. I'm not gonna lie. I love being in love, but I've changed it to where I'm like, I love getting to know someone and having that connection to where now I'm in love with this person and having the love with this person. But that's me.
You can have both.
Right.
It's not one or the other. You can be in love with being in love, but also being in love with the person you're in love with. But when you just have love for love's sake, ooh,
it's hard.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle. Because by all means, like, if you are in that situation, what else is sustaining you other than this idea that you might be, like, in this honeymoon phase forever? Like, there's nothing, you know what true love is? True love is, my uncles told me this a long time ago. I don't suggest you do this, but my uncle, he said, true love is when I was constipated and my wife came in the room to check on me. And she opened the door with reckless abandon, embraced the fact that I smelled horrendous, and cared about my health. That was true love for him. And I remember hearing that, like, when I was a teenager. I was like, ugh.
Ew. Gross.
Like, he's crazy. And B, like, I don't know if I love anyone yet enough to just bear their smell while trying to check on their health and safety. But in those moments, like that, if you're in love with the idea of love, be in love with the idea that this person loves me enough to do that for me, versus being in love with this general sense of, like, well, at least I got somebody and I'm not by myself.
All great conversation topics. As always, is there anything else when it comes to fidelity that you want to touch on?
So I say this every week, but you got to define love, right? So define your idea of fidelity within the context of your own relationship. They all might not be the same. And just because you were in a certain conceptual realm with one person 3-4 years ago, it's like the person at your job who always says, well, I'm at last base. It's like, well, you ain't there no more.
Right.
Like, you are here in this relationship. So define fidelity for you and your partner. What does that look like in practice? And then what are parameters for our ideas of what kind of, I don't want to say rules, but I guess in many ways they're kind of like, they're rules of engagement more so than actual hard set rules, and how we're going to maintain that together. And then deeply, maybe even by yourself, like, ask, is any of this meaningful to me? Is it truly meaningful to me? And if it is, you got to win. And if it isn't, find you somebody who gives you the inspiration to have that meaning altogether. If you can do that, you're at least giving yourself a fighting chance, and that's all I ever asked for.
Just getting show love. You just said I showed up. Boy, respect your elder. I'm a fucking grown up. Phone them told me go nuts. Run them ain't for no number. No talking that dinner or to bacon that eat donuts. Somebody on the come up. I might share my bonus. Cases of coronas and my little marijuana. I'ma face a hold up. Rosie's for my soul trust. Tell her hate to hold up. Them niggas gotta show love.